One of the most common questions that I get asked related to the recent UFO whistleblower allegations that the US government is in possession of spacecraft of non-human origin is, if there are all these whistleblowers coming forward to Congress and investigators, why can't the public get access or confirmation of the underlying evidence or verification that has been done around the claims of these whistleblowers? I also have that question, and we may be able to start to get some answers thanks to a classified briefing happening tomorrow between the Department of Defense Inspector General, the DoD-IG, and members of the House Oversight Committee at 9 a.m. Here's why this matters. As many of you know, David Grush came forward earlier this year as well as testified in front of the House Oversight Committee in Congress in July regarding his personal experience being a member of the UAP Task Force, an investigative body within the DoD that was tasked between 2019 and 2021 to look into the allegations that military pilots were witnessing these anomalous activities and events while they were flying. And over the course of his investigation, David Grush came up with 5 core allegations, of which include the withholding of classified information related to UAP from congressional oversight, as well as the existence of illegal UFO crash retrieval and reverse engineering programs, and a disinformation campaign regarding the existence of those programs being conducted by the intelligence community. In July of 2021, David Grush decided to become a whistleblower and bring forth his findings to the Department of Defense Inspector General. As a note, the role of inspectors general is to operate as the internal cop for federal agencies. So if you are a federal employee and you witness wrongdoing within your agency, each branch has their own inspector general with which you can have those allegations adjudicated. It was shortly after coming forward to the DoD-IG in July of 2021 that David Grush began to experience whistleblower retaliation from one of the agencies that he worked for, which at the time included the National Reconnaissance Office, the NRO, and the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, the NGA. Grush subsequently filed a second whistleblower complaint, but in this case, it was a PPD-19 urgent concern complaint that was filed specifically with the Intelligence Community Inspector General. If there's one detail you take away from this video, this is the one to focus on. This decision by David Grush was so important and is the reason why so many members within Congress and outside of Congress are taking his allegations so seriously. Because with a PPD-19 urgent concern complaint, there is a specific requirement that if the Inspector General deems the underlying allegations to be credible and urgent, that triggers a requirement to report that information directly to the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence and the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. And that is exactly what happened in December of 2022 when the ICIG deemed David Grush's whistleblower complaint about an illegal UFO crash retrieval and reverse engineering program to be credible and urgent, which triggered a reporting requirement to both of those intel committees in the Congress. Following this notification to Congress, as well as a notification to the Director of National Intelligence, Avril Haines, which is also a requirement when you file a PPD-19 whistleblower complaint, David Grush gave over 12 hours of testimony across both committees in front of those members on the staff that had the security clearance to be able to hear David Grush's evidence. And it should be noted that the IG made that credible and urgent designation based on their own investigation and interviews with first-hand witnesses to the alleged UFO crash retrieval and reverse engineering programs. What this all means is that there are 3 groups of people that have direct knowledge of the underlying evidence related to David Grush's allegations: the Department of Defense Inspector General's Office, the Intelligence Community Inspector General's Office, and the House and Senate Intel Committee staff members. Now, having said all that, this is what makes tomorrow morning's DoD-IG classified briefing with the House Oversight Committee so interesting, because the DoD-IG's office is one of those 3 groups of people that does have access to and an understanding of the underlying evidence and proof related to David Grush's allegations. So for those of you who have been wondering where I've been, part of the work I've been doing is putting together resources like this, which is a briefing packet for members of Congress to get prepared for that meeting with the DoD-IG tomorrow to ensure that they have the most relevant and up-to-date information and understand what kind of pushback and questions to ask so that we, the public, can get towards the answer as to whether there is a there to the allegations coming from the likes of whistleblowers like David Grush. The briefing packet has been sent to congressional staffers of the House Oversight Committee, and you can also check it out here. It's a great resource, uapcaucus.com/DODIG. And it should be noted that there is a follow-up meeting next week as well with the ICIG. So tomorrow it's the DODIG, the Department of Defense. Next week it's the ICIG. We are in communication with staffers for briefing templates for both briefings. And also, I did an interview this morning with Mo at Disclosure Diaries on some of these initiatives. So I'm going to go ahead and pop that clip in here so you can also take a look. The goal was, how can we fill and bridge that gap by providing the necessary context and background, particularly because we've seen when the Oversight Committee members have reached out to the ICIG, Thomas Monheim, via that letter a few months back. The details really do matter, and how they ask questions, how they perceive the pushback is really going to dictate the type of information that we can get out of them. So the goal was to make sure that staffers had the right information in preparation to really understand what was the DIG's specific purview in David Grush's whistleblower complaints, because he does have two, one specifically for the withholding of classified information, the other related to whistleblower retaliation. So knowing the difference is important for framing questions and being prepared for the known pushback they should expect and not accept from the DODIG in this context.
Absolutely. And I think it's also interesting to highlight there has been a change of guard, I believe, at the DOD Inspector General's office since the time Grush gave his initial filings.
Very good point.
Which I think was back in, off the top of my head, July 2021. So 2 years ago at this point.
Yes.
So it's also going to be interesting to see how, the chain of information has gone since 2 years ago. So this is a great initiative for sure.
It's a running theme in the UAP topic that, as generations come in and leave, there's just a huge loss of information and knowledge transfer, in a variety of arenas, whether this is in the alleged UFO crash retrieval programs or even in efforts, for oversight. But we think, work like this briefing packet, like the white paper on the special committee and the need for that, select committee and the need for that, are important endeavors that allow us to engage the community. Even in this section you have pulled up here for the questions, we reached out via Twitter/X to the community to ask them to provide their most, desired questions to be answered. And we had to filter them a little bit, because the DODIG has a very narrow remit. So we wanted to make sure that it was relevant to the DODIG, but then also help to use that as a learning opportunity for the larger public of saying, hey, this set of questions, these are great. Here's the reason why the DODIG is not the place where those types of questions will get answered. But, so we can sort of redirect energy accordingly based on, again, just the bureaucratic setup and inertia that is of no, it's not specific to UAP. It's just how the sort of government is set up generally. The full interview with Mo at Disclosure Diaries will likely be out next week, and we touch a variety of topics, including the recent drama with the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, as well as the white paper that we put out arguing for a select committee on UAP as a counterpart to the UAP Disclosure Board that's proposed in the UAP Disclosure Act of 2023 that's currently under debate with Congress. So there's a lot to keep up on. Stay tuned as we have more coming over the course of the week.